Are you tired of hiring salespeople who just don't deliver? What if I told you 90% of this is your fault? That's the challenge that we're gonna deal with today. So stick around and hang on, because over the next few minutes, I'm gonna help you understand why it's important and what you can do to fix it. So how do we know this is a problem? Well, first of all, sales has the highest turnover of any profession in the world at more than 30%. Now, if you think about that, that means you turn over your entire sales team once every 3 years. It's unbelievably expensive to do that with replacing all those people, whether you're paying recruiting fees or you're just replacing them using your own internal HR processes. So that's the first concern. But then what about this? Are your sellers better at selling themselves to you in an interview process than they are at actually selling your products or services? And part of the thing you're running into is this: sales is the highest turnover of any profession, but it's also the number 2 most in-demand job in the world. And pricing has been driven up on it. And so it's become even more costly to have sales staff turnover. And we're not just talking about the hard dollars, but what about the opportunity lost in those territories where those sales reps were ineffective? Here are 5 reasons why we know that sales hiring and onboarding is a real problem that you must address today. Well, first, it costs on average $115,000 to replace any individual bad hire. And that's just mostly fixed cost. Depending on the product, the service, the sales, or the margin, we found that number can be substantially higher. Did you know the average new sales hire takes more than 11 months to actually be productive? Think about that. Almost 1 full year. According to Sales and Marketing Management Association, 62% of organizations feel that their onboarding programs are ineffective. Here's what's interesting about that. That means 38% of organizations think, it's pretty good. But only 12% of employees believe that the company they work for has an outstanding onboarding process. Gallup found out you have to get it right from the beginning to ensure company success. And the last reason, did you know that sales reps are 58% more likely to leave if the company onboarding process is poor? And that with a good onboarding process, more than 82% of those actual reps, instead of leaving, will stay. These numbers show exactly how important it is that we get it right from the start. So stick around, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you the 5 essentials that you must have before hiring salespeople so that you can reduce your staff turnover. First, we must have clear lines of responsibility on the team. This seems self-evident, but unfortunately when it comes to sales, companies get lazy. And what do I mean by that? Well, we start measuring things by simply saying, well, what do you mean? We actually measure their performance because it's about what they sold. Yep, that's true. But what about a team with divided responsibilities? What about having an SDR versus a front-end AE versus inbound reps versus outbound reps? This setup doesn't take into account the previous experiences of those salespeople within the systems they come from. And so you assume just because they show up at your company and they were hired, that they know what to do on a day-to-day basis. So we must make sure that we have clear lines of responsibility, because one of the biggest mistakes is for companies to have vague job descriptions, which lead to confusing job performance when roles aren't clearly defined. It's easy for tasks to fall through the cracks and for team members to step on each other. So here's what you can do about it. There are 3 specific actions you can take today. First, detailed job descriptions. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, Ken, well, we have this job description that we put in our job posts. And then from there, we have that job description that we show them when they show up and they're onboarded. That's not a detailed job description. That's a job post masquerading as a job description, because you need to craft a comprehensive job description that outlines specific duties and expectations, daily tasks and long-term goals. It has to have the meat of what they're expected to do on a day-to-day basis within that playbook. Second, we must have responsibilities and service agreements between people who interact with one another. By creating a responsibility matrix, we can clearly show whose job is what. As an example, let's say that we have 2 team members, one setting leads and one of them is actually following up, holding discovery calls, and then trying to walk them through and close them. Well, what happens when somebody no-shows a meeting? You have that documented as to what in the world is supposed to happen. Does it go back to the SDR? Does it stay with the AE? Whose responsibility is it to chase that? We must make sure that we ensure accountability so things don't fall through the cracks. And third, we must have internal regular role audits. Whether it's the company CEO, CFO, COO, the executive leadership, and your sales leaders, or whether it's getting together at more of a grassroots and taking a 360 approach to it. Which parts of this apply and which parts of this are confusing for the sales team that you have? These are the types of things you must consider when you're talking about having clear lines of responsibility. Because I'm going to ask you the following question, and I think you need to think deeply about it. But how can you expect success when your sales team doesn't even know what success looks like? The second component that we have to get right is having an effective compensation plan. We have to have transparent and motivating compensation plans. Here's the challenge. You still think that all sellers are coin operated. You still think that each seller, if I just show them a percentage and a possible on-target earnings number that's above their salary, that they're gonna go run through a brick wall and get that done. Well, our research from the State of Sales Skills in 2024 Engineering Excellence, which is our proprietary research, show that of the elite performers, more than 50% of them are actually internally or intrinsically motivated. It's about the job performance and the feeling of it. The money is actually something that comes just after the fact. You have to understand that the way you've always compensated and thought about it before may not be the way that people actually respond. Because unfair compensation structures lead to dissatisfied employees, turnover, and feelings of frustration, which freeze people in their place rather than allowing them and motivating them to do their jobs. With that happening, they can look for opportunities elsewhere. In one instance, we know of a company that lost 75% of their sales team after making the wrong moves on their sales compensation plan. So how do you actually make sure that it's fair and motivating? Well, here are 3 things that you can do to make sure that doesn't happen to you. First, a competitive base salary. It's very interesting in today's world because what is competitive? Some people will say it's $65,000 a year, and some people will say competitive is $180,000 a year in salary. But I can tell you this is based on 2 specific factors. It's based on what's the actual sales cycle time. The faster the sales cycle time, the faster the turnover of deals, the higher the variable compensation can be. The longer the sales cycle time, the actual higher the competitive salary needs to be with a lower at-risk or variable component, because they'll be on the salary much longer before they can actually hit their commission base. So first, a competitive base salary. You must shop it, you must look at it, and you must understand it. Second, performance bonuses. What we're seeing today is a move towards bonuses that take into account 2 things for sellers. One is a traditional at-risk component that you might call commissions. The second are MBOs, management by objective. What are they doing to get better and contribute to the success of a team on a monthly and quarterly basis? And we tend to see those structures go 75% at-risk compensation from commissions and 25% on the MBO side. But a side note on that is this: oftentimes the MBOs can be paid out up to 150%. So that's second. Performance bonuses can be segregated. And I'd be the first person to tell you annual bonuses are not good motivational tools. Next, we must conduct regular reviews of our compensation plans in order to adjust them for market changes or changes that will work for our team in order to keep them motivated and show them that we value their contributions. So make those 3 changes as it comes to building an effective compensation plan, and you'll be well on your way to motivating your team through the comp. But remember this, and this is the reason why. You gotta understand your compensation plan. Is it driving away the top talent, or are they looking to come work for you? Our third component is that we must have clear metrics and KPIs. The challenge with clear metrics and KPIs is this: when I ask companies, they say, oh yeah, we have clear metrics. They need to hit a $2 million quota. Well, the problem with that is it's only looking backwards, folks. We need to be able to show them clear metrics and KPIs that indicate success on a daily basis. Instead, all we focus on is the number. And then, when we focus on the number, let me ask you another question. If they don't hit it, do you actually turn them over? Because we find many companies who have somebody who's not hit quota in more than a year who's still taking up a seat on their company bus. So here are 3 things that you can do to do a better job of setting clear metrics and KPIs in order to improve how fast and how long your teams are successful. So first, SMART goals. Set specific, measurable, achievable, and relevant time-bound goals. If you don't know about SMART goals, you can look it up on the internet, and it's a fantastic, small, short-term framework on how to make sure that we're aligned on what needs to be done by who and by when. Next, dashboard tracking. We have to be able to provide the information, whether it's through a daily report, a weekly report, a daily dashboard, and a weekly dashboard. We have to be able to show people where they sit versus the things that will make them a success on a day-to-day basis. And the third thing, which is the most important, in order to improve and give yourself clear metrics and KPIs that drive success, you must have a portion of these be forward-looking. I will be the first person to tell you you're absolutely right that sellers should sell, and they should be measured on the outcomes they produce, and that's 100% accurate. But if you have a 120-day sales cycle, a 180-day sales cycle, or they've just onboarded and there's no inbound traffic, or they're not getting tossed into existing deals, what do they know that if they do this on a day-by-day basis, that you can tell they're gonna have success later? So the third component is make sure that you're choosing forward-looking KPIs and metrics as a valuable way to understand whether or not they're going to be successful and how to adjust the behavior before it's too late. This is the question you must ask yourself about metrics and KPIs. If you haven't established them and they don't understand the daily rhythms, how can your team hit a target that they can't see? The fourth component that you need to reduce sales staff turnover, you must have a comprehensive onboarding and continuous training. Now, first of all, people say, oh, we have onboarding because we teach them about our company. But do you teach them about how to sell within your company? Do you teach them about your ideal client profiles, your personas, and the things and the people that they need to talk to and the things that they need to speak about? Many companies neglect onboarding and training, expecting new hires to just figure it out themselves. And that puts them in a position where their success is not being supported by their company, but rather potentially inhibited. So there are 3 things that you can do in order to help have a solid and comprehensive onboarding and continuous training program that will help your people to improve. First, structured onboarding. In sales, it's interesting because we say, here's our product, go read about it. Go to our website, go read about it. And then we expect that people will know what to do with that specific data. That's not actually true. They don't know what to do with it, and they don't understand your persona in many cases. And if they came from another company in your industry, my gosh, think about the bad habits that they may be bringing to your company. So in a structured onboarding, when you're talking about sellers in particular, we have to have the product knowledge component and then the sales methodology component. The sales roadmap is your sales process. The methodology is how we do it. So the structured onboarding plan should actually bring all those pieces together in a way that enables sellers to be successful. Second, mentorship programs. And these mentorship programs can be cross-functional, or it can be somebody within the organization in a similar role. Now, depending on the size of your organization and how fast you're hiring, I will caution you on one thing. If you only have 2 really great sellers and you're trying to hire 10 people who you all want to have a mentor, putting all of that on those 2 great sellers will make them less effective. But how nice would it be if you have people who are strong in the culture, have had success, and have some length within your organization that were the voice inside that new employee's ear before somebody took them out and made them think this wasn't gonna work. Third, and probably one of the things that's most missed in the sales world, and that is ongoing training. I don't know how it happened, folks, but somehow somebody's trained somebody or talked to someone somewhere and they taught them the following thing. Sales is an art and you either know how to do it or you don't. You can either sell ice to an Eskimo or you can't. You either have the gift of gab or you can't. And there's about 100 other cliches that say if you can move your mouth, you can be successful in sales. And so we don't train them. It's amazing to me in every other discipline that we have that's so critical to an organization, there's some form of ongoing continuing education credits for athletes. They're still dribbling a basketball 37 years after they learned to dribble one when they were 4. And in sales, we say, well, you've been in sales for 12 months. You should probably know everything. And that's just not true. But you must implement ongoing training programs to keep skills sharp, knowledge tight, and to make sure they can be effective and stay competitive picking up market share for you. So those are the 3 components that'll help you build a comprehensive onboarding and continuous training program. And I'm gonna ask you this question and why this section is so darn important. Are you setting your new hires up to fail from day one, or are you setting them up to succeed? And finally, the 5th thing that you have to have in place to reduce staff turnover is a strong company culture and support system. Now, the challenge here is that, quite frankly, most CEOs and leaders are completely devoid of any real understanding of what the true company culture is in the walls. When we walk in, we often see friction-laden cultures with people pointing the finger and everybody saying something is somebody else's responsibility. A toxic or unsupportive company culture can drive even the most talented employees into the arms of your competitors, and so we must pay attention to this and be okay with whatever the answer is, because you can't fix what you don't know or understand. So here are a few ways that you can consider 3 things that will help you create a strong company culture and a support system. So first is an inclusive culture. Now, I don't mean this necessarily from a DEI perspective, but I do mean this from a perspective of everybody needs to have the ability to feel valued and heard. And there's a very big difference between feeling valued and feeling heard. You tell me which one of those would be more important to you. This can be achieved through open recognition. Diversity initiatives can absolutely do it. Recognition programs. But I think the most important thing that you can do in order to drive a strong company culture in this respect is make sure that it's cross-functional inclusion. One of the biggest challenges that we see for companies is they think sales is the only one responsible for selling. That's not a sales-enabled culture. Next, we have to establish support networks such as peer groups where every team member feels valued and heard. This is something that we can absolutely put in place today in order to drive the culture and make sure that everybody feels like they have a support system. In this world of remote work, it's more important than ever because, as they say at the church I go to, circles are better than rows. So instead of having people in rows of houses where they're doing the remote work, let's put them in circles on Zoom and let's make sure that they have a chance to interact with one another. And last, regular check-ins. I can't tell you today, especially in the world post-COVID, how little this is really done. The old days it was easy because you could manage by walking around and just jump into Johnny and Jane and Jim as you walked through the office. But now in this remote world, we're sending text messages that say, hey, anything I can help with? No, good. Because we're not doing a good job of checking in, engaging employee satisfaction, addressing concerns, and supporting their actual success. It's critical that we teach our managers how to ask more pointed questions, because those are the questions that are really going to expose how people feel. So as we go to build a strong culture and a strong support system, I ask you, is your company culture pushing top talent out of the door? We've covered 5 ways to help you reduce staff turnover. And so what were they again? 1, clear lines of responsibility. 2, effective compensation plans. 3, clear metrics and KPIs. 4, comprehensive onboarding and continuous training. And 5th and finally was to create a strong company culture and support system. So I would tell you this, you need to implement these strategies. You need to show this video to other people. You need to hit subscribe on the YouTube channel and follow us on LinkedIn. If you want to help become more effective as a leader and you want your teams to be more effective in actually succeeding and feeling comfortable in your company. So implement these strategies and watch your sales team thrive. Hey, for more insights on how strategic selling works, check out my book, Strategic Selling Unleashed, or visit our website for any of our consulting services. Your sales team's success is in your hands. Are you ready to take the responsibility and the challenge?